Welcome back to Open Line. Talking about the Nashville mayor's race, also the News Channel 5 poll. We have Berje Yacoubian here with Yacoubian Research, who put the poll together, and Pat Nolan, our political analyst. Several calls. Let's go to Jim. Hello, Jim.
Hey, how you doing, bro?
Great. What's on your mind?
Well, I was going to say I watched the debate tonight on Fox 17.
There was another debate. That's right. It just ended.
That's exactly right. And in my opinion, she clearly won the debate. The only thing I found strange was that there was no rebuttals from either candidate. And I thought that was a little weird. And I thought, well, is David Fox now just not wanting to debate her or give a... It was kind of weird.
Well, we didn't see it here. Did the format allow for rebuttals? A lot of these debates since we've gone down to two candidates.
They did.
And they just didn't do it?
Every question they asked, they gave each one of them a rebuttal. And nobody gave a rebuttal. And I thought that was a little strange because, you know, he's ran ads rebutting everything that she says. So, and vice versa. So I found that a little strange, but she clearly won the debate. She answered the question so clearly and so precise, and he kind of hollered around about certain
Now, have you
things.
decided who you're going to vote for?
In my opinion, but clearly she won the debate.
Okay, all right. Well, that I think, and we're going to. I want to go to you with some numbers from our debate, which might be interesting. But I saw a portion of the debate, and it was very tame. And I think a lot of people were expecting, based on the week we've had, that the gloves would come off.
Well, I would say this. I didn't see any of tonight's debate, so I can't really analyze it per se of what was said. But it could well be that there's a concern by both camps that this can get a little too intense, and the voters may backlash to that. If it gets too intense, too personal, somebody says something intemperate that they shouldn't say. Now, that hasn't happened yet, but it could at any time. Maybe they just decided to ratchet it back a little bit tonight. But normally, if they just were making point counterpoint, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem. They haven't been tame about disagreeing with one another. Just maybe they were a little concerned if they pressed that too much, it was going to push the wrong button. With
I felt that was perhaps a concern, and I have been quite surprised. There's been so much talk about religion. These things can get very emotional very quickly.
Well, I don't know if that topic came up tonight, but it would have been an interesting question to have brought up. I brought up the topic of the ads in the African American community, which raised religion as an issue really to the forefront for the first time. And you could see the tension building between the two because it was not only bringing up religion, it was bringing up Megan Barry's spouse. And of course, the other spouse in the race has been involved too, doing ads for David Fox. So spouses have gotten involved in a way that you don't normally see in this and may continue to be between now and Election Day.
Well, this is a different campaign too. I mean, remember last time in 2007 race, you did not have any PAC money. You didn't have outside money to the tune of $250,000 or perhaps $500,000 coming in and attacking one candidate or the other. Now, my guess is that they're both doing it, although it's probably disproportionate on one side than the other. The other thing is that if there is a temporary lull urged on by their campaign managers, be nice, play nice, let's get this through this early voting, you're going to see a barrage of negative ads once the early voting ends and we get close to within a week of the actual election. There will be some negative ads because campaign managers do not like being behind, and they figure out, what have we got to lose? We're either going to lose with fighting or we're going to lose without fighting. Let's go all the way. Let's fight as hard as we can. And that's going to translate into negative advertising.
Right. All right, you have some other points you wanted to bring up from the data that you gathered.
Right. What we had done, the way the poll was set up, anyone could respond to the News Channel 5 poll. So they would go on the air, or they click a button and they go in there and respond to the poll, and then they say how much of the debate they watched. Of those who watched all of the debate, 61% to 35% they thought Megan Barry won the debate. And that made up over half the watchers. And of those who watched most of the debate, they favored Megan Barry by about 10 points, 52 to 42. And of those who watched some or little of it, she actually was behind, 45 to 49. But here's the last one that's most interesting. The people who had never even watched any of the debate, News Channel 5 debate, said they were going to vote for 57% for Fox, 40% for did not watch. What that essentially tells me is that there were a group of people who went and responded to the poll. They had no intention of watching the debate. They were for him, and they thought they could really mess up the poll. And that probably was the intent, but it actually didn't work because we were able to separate them.
In the area of the super PACs, it's interesting. 8 years ago, of course, we didn't have these things going on in politics. This is a creature of Citizens United and the what happened in the Supreme Court. It's so far, though, the super PAC that's been funded by David Fox's brother has funded a pretty heavily run TV ad in this runoff election. But beyond that, I have not seen any direct activity that you can trace for them, and they're supposed to identify the stuff that they do. So far, I haven't seen that. We'll see what their report turns out to be. But it's interesting they haven't done more than just that, because they did some mail back during the general election. In fact, one of the ones with Linda Rivervik was so bad, at least in terms of what David Fox thought, he made a public apology about it. At the time said he didn't know his brother was involved in it. There hasn't been a super PAC involved for Megan Barry that I've seen. All the stuff that she's done has been her own one way or the other. There hasn't been any other groups involved on her end. There has been the one for David Fox.
And I think it's appropriate to bring up, I heard an ad today that was from outside, wasn't from Fox or Barry. It was paid for by a councilman.
Metro Councilman Dwayne Dominic, from an outgoing councilman in the Antioch area. Yes.
And I haven't seen something like that done before, but he paid for an ad and said, I've seen Megan Barry not say under God during the council, during council meetings when they do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well, I happened to be between the two candidates on Monday at the Rotary Club, and since I knew that issue had been circulating around in rumor form on the internet, I specifically listened to hear both of them, and they both said under God.
It's quite. Have you ever seen a council member spend his own money on an ad? It's clear. That's got to be an attack.
Not that I can remember. I would also say about that I know where Mr. Dominic sits in the council chambers, and I know where Megan Barry sits. The council members at large sit up front on the first row, and in his district, since they're put in there numerically, he's back towards the back. I don't want to question his eyesight or hearing, but it'd have to be pretty extraordinary from where he sits to where she is for him to be able to see what she says or hear what she says on a regular basis during the pledge, because her back is to them. They're both facing forward to go to the flag. So I'm not going to dispute that he thought he heard what he heard, but it's interesting that he could do that from where I know they both stay at their seats to do that. When they do that, stand next to their seats. I'm not quite sure I know exactly how he'd be able to see or hear that.
And so in this Rotary Club forum, when you ask about this issue of religion and it got tense, how did that play out?
Well, it played out. I mean, Megan at that point was on the attack. She basically was going after David that this was not fair, this was not true, and secondly that she and her husband were unchristian, and that bringing the family in was not fair. That she wanted to bring her in for her record, that was fine, but family ought to be off limits. David responded calmly that what he had was researched, and he was not going to back off from any of it, and continued to be that way. It came up later, was going to try to be brought up later in a news conference afterwards by reporters. David was going to get an endorsement from Darrell Walton and some other NASCAR drivers. They had their car down in front of the NASCAR cafe with the Fox logo on it. But Fox's campaign manager would not allow any questions about anything but the endorsement, not about the other things, which, generally speaking, is not a good idea. And if you don't believe that, go ask somebody named Ray Blanton, who got himself in trouble. He would only take positive questions when he was going.
Yeah, that's a rough call to make. All right, let's go to Maria. Hello, Maria.
Thank you for taking my call. Okay, let me talk religions a little bit. How people can go to church on Sunday to pray to God that give us a good mayor when she is completely the opposite. When God is the love for everybody, including gay people, he said, yeah, but you have to repent. When you give a gay person a marriage license, you're not giving a repent, you're giving a lifetime commitment for a sin. And she pretends like she's God this and God that. It's the opposite. The Christian people have to open their eyes and know that the woman is a fake.
Okay, so here's a passionate supporter, I'm going to say, of David Fox. Clearly, she's raising some of
Certainly
these
not
social
passionate
issues.
Opponent of Megan Berry, at least where she
Yes,
stands on some of
passionate
those issues.
opponent of Megan Berry, raising some of these social issues that kind of took front and center, certainly in the primary. And you said, Berje, that this was a very partisan. The breakdown on this is very partisan. And when you start talking about gay marriage and some of those things, that gets into some of these more national issues that can have a more partisan sort of side to them. But I guess break down again in the poll what you're finding as far as Democrat, Republican, and that kind of partisan support.
She's actually got more Republican, soft Republican vote than he has Democratic vote. And the county is still pretty much Democratic county. What is interesting is that among independents who are neither Democrats or Republicans, he's got a slight lead. But her lead among Democrats is so much larger, and the size of the Democratic Party is so much greater that that's what's giving her the head up.
Did you have a breakdown of what people might identify themselves as independents? Or
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
what was the independent breakdown?
The independent breakdown, he had about a 10% lead among independents. But again, if you're a Democrat in a Democratic county, an independent vote makes about 30%. And if you're losing by less than 15 or 20%, you're ahead of the game because there are so many more Democrats to give you cover. On the ideological scale, she actually won among moderates. She had a lead among moderates. She won among liberals, clearly, 90-something plus to 6%, and she won among moderates. And that's important too, because if he's trying to portray her as an extreme, ideologically or politically, it hasn't worked with moderates. It has worked with independents somewhat because he's got a lead, but it hasn't worked with moderates.
And I think Phil Bredesen may be playing a role there. Remember, this debate happened after Phil Bredesen had come out and endorsed Megan Berry, which I think surprised some people. Phil Bredesen is known as a moderate. He had that reputation whether he was mayor or whether he was governor. And I think with Phil Bredesen on her side, it sort of said, look, I'm for good fiscal sound government. I wouldn't endorse somebody who wasn't that way. So I think that helps a lot. On the other side, David Fox has gotten the endorsement of Doug Henry, the retired former state senator, longtime Democrat, longest serving member in the General Assembly ever. He is for David Fox, making robocalls and personal calls for David Fox, along with Winfield Dunn. I think that's very helpful to David, particularly for the Doug Henry endorsement, because it sort of sends a message to moderate to conservative Democrats. It's okay to vote for Fox.
Right.
Doug Henry's for it. You can be for him too. So I think that's a little bit of his effort to give an antidote to that. I don't know if it works as well as Phil Bredesen, but if you don't have something else to go with it, it's a pretty good thing to go as a substitute.
And as far as Republicans, people who identify themselves as Republicans, is David Fox getting 9 out of 10 of those people that identify?
No, he doesn't have that much voter, but he's got clearly 2/3 of them with about 20% undecided still. So he'll probably end up benefiting from that. I think what is key in this whole campaign has become into answering the question, is the establishment in Nashville, the governing forces, the powerful and the ones who make the calls, comfortable with her as being the next mayor following Dean? And the answer so far has been yes. Reverse the question, is the establishment, Nashville establishment, all the way from Mayor Dean to Bredesen to whoever, are they comfortable with Fox? It is not that clear. It's not that clear that the establishment, including, let's say, the chamber, are as comfortable with him because of his background. You know, it's often said that, why can't businesses run government? Government is different. I wouldn't want my mayor to run my hedge fund, just like I wouldn't want my hedge fund manager to do my polling or whatever.
Right.
So there are differences in this, and it's not just, I'm a great businessman, I'm a success. Look at Trump. He wants to translate his business success into governing, and he's going to have a hard time.
Ben, one other thing to bring up today, there was another poll that came out. It's more of an expectations poll. It's done by Bruce Dobie on his thenashvillebanner.com website. He's done 3 or 4 of them during this race. The question was, who do you plan to, and this was done mostly among movers and shakers in town, probably 800 or 900 people. Who do you plan to vote for? It was pretty heavily for Megan Berry. Who do you think is going to win even more heavily for Megan Berry? On the one hand, that's some momentum for her campaign, perhaps. On the other hand, as I think Berje said earlier, you have to be careful that you're not going to build some overconfidence of people saying, "Oh my goodness, she's doing so well in that." That's not
She
a
doesn't
poll.
need my
That's an
vote. I might as well not
expectations
vote.
kind
Yeah.
of situation. It doesn't mean anything scientifically. So they need to guard against people saying, "Now, okay, we've got this one. I don't have to worry about it. I'll go ahead and go to the lake this weekend. I won't early vote. I won't be back till Friday of next week. So I hope she wins." And you find out maybe a lot of people do that.
And
She may
there's
not.
no doubt Fox's supporters, they may be more likely to vote on some level. They may be older, and they're going to get to the polls.
His supporters will get to the poll no matter what. Something about age. Once you turn 50 and older, voting does not become a pastime. It's a responsibility and is seen as a duty. Now, it changes. It's correlated directly to age. The older you get, the more likely you are to think that I've got to vote. It's not something that I'm going to do when it's comfortable, when it's shiny and sunny or whatever. One thing about expectations, there was an academic paper published just 2 quarters ago in the American Association of Public Opinion Research. It was done very well. It was done, they took all the care, and they showed a significant correlation, strong correlation, almost to the force of causation, which basically said, you are more likely to vote for someone if you think he's going to win. So this person's recommendation was, don't even ask them who they're going to vote for. Just ask them who they think is going to win, and you pretty much guarantee that they're going to vote for that person.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We will come back, continue the discussion. If you want to call, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Be back right after this.